Alright. Hello. So, I think I've given everybody enough time to filter in, and people will filter in, of course, as it goes on. Hey guys! So, hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe. Thanks for coming out, supporting my live stream, my writing live stream. It's the first time I'm doing this. Not the first time I'm streaming, of course, but it's a completely different sort of scenario. So it's, pardon me if I repeat myself a lot. I'm a little nervous about that in particular. Let me know if you can hear me well and everything. I've got my microphone, like, I probably just tapped it and you guys heard that, but I got my microphone over here. So it's also my first time doing a stream with Facecam, so that's interesting. So let me see. Hello, bug. So I guess I should get started with the need to knows section, because if you look on the stream overlay, it's pretty lengthy, but don't worry, it's not as scary as it might seem. It's just a couple things that I kind of had to consider more for like the writing stream than for the for like my art streams, I guess. Let me see. Oh, obviously, since I'm writing the script, it's gonna be spoiler intensive. Like, I'm not gonna spoil things that happen way later on in the story. And there's certain things that I have to consider, but I have to make sure I don't say on screen, because they would absolutely ruin the twist. But it's definitely, I mean, obviously I'm writing the script, so you're gonna be spoiled on the script of the chapter, and then I'll probably end up doing thumbnails for it too. But I mean, the final product is always, could change. So yeah, obviously spoilers. Sorry, I have to keep looking over here because my other screen has my chat on it. But yeah, obviously there's gonna be spoilers for certain things, and just wanted to give like a slight trigger warning too. A lot of my work, a lot of leftovers in another story I'm starting to work on called Anxieties. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But a lot of my work deals with me processing my anxieties. So if if any talk of like mental illness or, personal experience with mental illness is going to trigger you, I wouldn't watch this. Just because like I've had a history of having to hide these things and not be able to talk about it. And now that I'm older, going to therapy, I'm pretty open with my experiences and how they affect my writing of the characters. Because if you read Leftovers, I'm pretty sure you can surmise now that Asadi is pretty anxious. She has a lot of anxiety. So yeah, that's gonna come up, as well as everyone else around her too, her team and stuff like that. But that's gonna come up, obviously. Let me see. I have to keep looking at my overlay because I completely forgot whatever. Oh, okay. When it comes to suggestions, and let me know if I'm talking too fast. I do that when I get nervous. When it comes to suggestions and stuff of like, hey, you should do this or have this character do this. Sometimes I'll prompt and be like, hey guys, like, what do you think? That's allowed. Like, go ahead and give me suggestions in that time period. But overall, I generally have the stuff kind of planned out. It's just me working through it on stream. So, I mean, you could put suggestions in the chat, but I won't always implement them, if at all. I still have to, like, play the field on that, because I just opened up cameos. Some of you guys know, I just opened up cameos. So, having other people's characters in there is kind of like the first time I'm getting, outside of just criticism and stuff, it's kind of the first time I'm getting other people's hands like, in my work too, which is interesting because I like the collaborative feeling behind that. But writing is a very, I guess, personal thing when it comes to that. So playing it by ear on that front. Oh, and then lastly, I'm not a professional, so like I'm not a professional writer. So, everything that I say, I know sometimes I tend to speak with a tone that implies that what I'm saying is absolutely right. Like, a lot of video essayists do this on YouTube, where they speak with a tone that comes across as factual, but in reality, take everything I say with a grain of salt. What works for me, and what works for you, works for you. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but, just wanted to bring it up. Just in case somebody was coming in here trying to, like, learn, oh, how do I be an excellent writer? Like, I'm learning, so, I as I've gone into this next phase, I feel like there's a million and one next phases of Leftovers, but as I've gone into this next phase of Leftovers, I've come to terms with a lot of the times where I thought I was writing something good, and then it turns out I completely missed certain areas, or I was letting certain feelings guide me rather than being logical about where the plot should go and where the characters should go. I'm pretty sure Bug probably knows what I'm talking about because I posted a whole spiel about that on the forums. But yeah, so not a professional, just doing my thing out here trying to write, have some fun. So I think that's enough about the disclaimers. Make sure everything is lined up. And if there's anything that goes wrong, like if the music is too loud, or if I'm talking too fast, or you can't see certain things, definitely let me know, because, like I said, this is my first time doing a writing stream. It's not as... It's a different field than a drawing stream, because you only need to see so much. But here, I'm going through text and stuff, so... you feel it? I'm glad you feel what I'm feeling. So yeah, I guess now we can move on to the catching up to speed part. So those of you who have read Leftovers, obviously you know where we're at now, but there's so much time between like, updates that I'm just gonna give a little brief recap. So where we're at right now, the kids, Asadi and her whole group have just arrived to Slateport, and Slateport City is a whole new beast because it's no longer Slateport City. Well, okay, Slateport City represents a lot of things. It represents an expanding of not only my writing skills and what's required of me as a writer, but it also represents just an expanding of worldview. Because beforehand, you know, all the little areas, like Little Root through Newford, they were all just like kind of little towns and kind of the more rural side of there's Westboro City, but they were kind of the more rural side of Hoenn, and I feel like that represented or that tied in pretty well with it being like my first steps into writing this world. Is like that was the tutorial phase, you know what I mean? So now that we've hit like the main stretch, we've hit Hoenn, and it's just you just go up from here. In the map, but then also in writing quality and hopefully, you know, the quality of my episodes. And so what I took a big writer's hiatus. I want to say last summer I took a big writer's hiatus, and it was so weird because I had been avoiding taking hiatuses because I've read a lot of comics where they go on hiatus and never come back, and I didn't want to instill that fear, you know, in you guys, in my audience. So I was avoiding taking a hiatus, but it got to the point where I didn't have enough written, and it was causing me a lot of anxiety because I didn't know where I was going to go after making the chapter that I already had lined up. So I just wouldn't make the chapter that I had lined up because I didn't know where to go after that. So I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna take a break, you know, take a month or so off, write. And it was crazy because as soon as I said I'm gonna take a break, like I always use this imagery, and it's not. I wanted to put it in a drawing of some sort, but I always use this imagery. It's like as soon as I said that I wanted to take a break, a pop-up popped up, and it was like, your free trial of Leftovers has expired. Like, do you want to, you know, renew, or do you want to buy the full version? And I'm like, what is it going to cost me? And they're like, you got to take some time off. And I don't take time off. So as soon as I was like, I made the investment, and I was like, okay, I want to take some time off. And I clicked that purchase, and it's like everyone's character arcs just suddenly, like, I unlocked all this shit. I unlocked character arcs. I unlocked thematic consistency. It was wild. And it happened in a very short span of time. So I've just been in this whole radical shakeup as far as when it comes to writing Leftovers in general. Side note, this is a hospital. They're going to be staying in a hospital in this one. That was a part of the whole opening up worldview thing, because suddenly just the character dynamics is not the only thing that can create conflict in the story. Because beforehand it was just kind of like, okay, you know, the characters and the plot, and I wasn't really, and I still really haven't like put the plot into play yet, but most of my interactions, most of my conflict came from the characters themselves, which is fine, but it you run out of situations to put them in after a while. And with like Asadi in particular, this is where I was getting to, but I went on a whole tangent before that. But with Asadi in particular and her team, those of you that read Leftovers know that at the end of chapter 9, the team experiences a horrible shakeup, and it's something that still gives me anxiety to like think about to this day. Because I don't like conflict, so writing it, it's like I want to respect the characters, but I also just want everyone to get along. Like, please. But they went through a huge shakeup, and one of the things that I had to kind of use to compensate with that is the fact that Asadi and her team are highly reactionary. Asadi in particular is highly reactionary, but because her team is, because of the nature of Pokemon in general, with the fact that they can be Pokeballed at any time, which I hinted at the end of chapter 9, the fact that they can be Pokeballed at any time means that they rely on the will of their trainer, and Asadi is very reactionary. So I kind of had to put her in a situation where she would be forced to do things, but not make it contrived, but also make it challenging enough to where it it elicited change within her. And one of the ways that started happening was through the introduction of the trainer troop. Now, I've mentioned Asadi's very reactionary, very anxious person. The trainer troop, they're kids. They're just young kids. They want to get out there and see the world. They want to explore things, and they represent that kind of like positive influence on Asadi. And they end up dragging her into situations. Now, obviously, I want to make sure, like I said, that this isn't contrived. I want to make sure it happens very naturally. But her being with them and them having a plan allowed me to still have Asadi be reactionary and evolve naturally, but also still keep the plot moving. Because if Asadi didn't have the troop, she probably would have still been in Duford, just kind of like, or gone home, you know, just like, what do I do now, you know? So it's been a very interesting series of events. Also, let me read the chat real quick. Oh my god, literally that moment. The moment you take, yes, when you take a break, that's when you're flooded with all the ideas, and then you get all these separate notebooks, and it's like, I have three or four separate notebooks of just like from that writing period where I took a break from Leftovers. And it's just, they're all scatterbrained ideas. Like, I rewrote the story several times, the whole story, all of it, like several times. I'm excited for your plot. I have my own theories on what's going to pop up, and I can't wait to see if they're right. I'm excited to show you guys, because it's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And not to overhype you or anything, but it's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I'm really excited for the especially after this writing break, I'm really excited for the path that things have taken as a whole, which I can probably jump into the next part of this debriefing. I know this debriefing is like super long, but not all of the streams are going to have this if I do the stream again. It's just trying to get you guys up to speed and get you in my headspace so you can see where I'm at with this. So when I took that break, I was going through a whole restructuring process because I had several problems. I had Asadi, of course, being the reactionary protagonist, barely a protagonist. She is the reactionary character that we follow, and then I had the introduction of the trainer troop and all of these characters that I wanted to go into, but I don't want to overload things, and I didn't want to have it like the arcs are happening with Asadi and her team, but the kids are just in the background. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of pieces to put in place. Like, you know, the guy, the meme. I forgot. I think is it from Community or Off? I don't know. It's probably from neither of those. But it's the meme of the guy, and he's like pointing at the board, and it's like all of the index cards that are connected by string. Like, that was me during that time period. It's just having to connect everything in a way that would, one, not drive me crazy, but two, be logical and be I keep saying not contrived, and that's really a, you'll hear me say that a lot in these streams. I can't rationalize events enough to make them I'm trying to see how I can phrase this. I'll say one of my biggest pet peeves is when events in the story are kind of contrived, or when they happen not because the character would do that thing, but because the author wants to do something that's cool or move the story along. And again, I mentioned on the Nuzlocke forums that happened a lot with the team dynamics with Asani and her team, where I kept putting them in situations at the end of chapter 7 and 8 where they were, oh yeah, hunky-dory, like everything's fine, but everything's really not fine. Like everything is really, really not fine. So I have to acknowledge that and let the characters grow if I don't want things to end up feeling contrived or to trivialize the situation, the dynamics between them. And plus it's a lot of stress, good stress, because I feel like a lot comes out of it, but it's a lot of stress now, but in the future, I feel like it's gonna pay off, you know what I mean? Like imagine if Zuko from Avatar, spoilers for Avatar if you haven't seen Avatar, imagine if Zuko from Avatar turned into a good guy after season 1. Like we would have missed out on all of his conflict, his struggles, and it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful, I feel like, if he had just joined the gang from season 1, the end of season 1. So that's kind of where I'm going for, or what I'm going for here is long-lasting character arcs, but I'm hoping they're impactful in the way I need them to be to justify all the work that I'm doing to get them there. So, let's talk about the actual writing here, because big part of that whole shakeup was being able to organize the parts of Leftovers so that it wasn't so daunting. And one of the things I ended up coming up with is that each city or town that they go to represents an arc. So for Slateport arc in particular, every arc has a theme too. So Slateport arc in particular is the theme is controlled chaos, and the arc is about 6 episodes, 6 chapters long. And this doing that helps me kind of work the characters a bit too, because each theme is going to, like, Control Chaos is going to bring out a certain side of certain characters, and the next theme and the next theme. And one of the things I was telling a friend is that it's easy to feel like you need plot to move your characters along, but really all it takes is just putting them in a situation that would be difficult for them to open them up, which is what happens in the first part of chapter 13, is Asadi, being a very introverted person, is put in a social situation, and that's what elicits a bit of change, and that's what elicits her to open up a bit. It doesn't have to be like a huge plot thing, like there's no bomb going off or something big happening. There is something that happens, but there isn't something super big happening that's like, oh, suddenly she's a different character now. It's just me having fun putting her in situations that she has no choice but to react to. Because again, she's reactionary, so she has no choice but to react to, and then that in the future helps her, because she's also a very sheltered character, so she doesn't have much world experience, but that in the future helps her become more proactive. So let me see, chapter 13. Chapter 13 is an interesting one because I'm rewriting the script. As you can see here, I have the whole script. I actually have 2 versions of the script, but that's because the ending was off, and it's what I was talking about earlier with not wanting things to feel contrived. So I'm just gonna walk through the original version of this chapter real quick. So we're at a point now where, like I was saying before, Asadi had this whole big shakeup with her team, and in chapter 10, she ended up making amends a little bit with Sammy, who was the only person she felt comfortable really letting out and interacting with, because he's not trying to fight everything. So she made kind of amends with him there. So I was thinking, chapter 13, it would be kind of cool if the two of them had not really like a Saudi Sammy date, but if the two of them had a bit of a just more time to be explored, because I explored Sammy just a little bit at the end of chapter 12 with his nightmare, but I feel like because I have so many characters, it's now become a game to explore them in a way where I don't necessarily have to put focus all on one character for one chapter, but just insert little things here and there. Which brings me kind of into like the dialogue section of things, just to explain before I go into this. Writing dialogue for me is very important. Obviously, because it's a comic, so we need dialogue. But writing dialogue is a very intense process for me, because I believe that everything a person says ties into who they are as a person. So, let me see. So yeah, okay, so like the first part of this chapter here, where obviously this doesn't still happen anymore. I want to enforce that this is a draft of a chapter. This is the first pass at chapter 13, and I'll explain why I needed another pass of that later. But for this particular section here, it starts with an establishing shot of the hostel, and then Asadi is in the room, and she does Sammy does this thing in chapter. Oh, it's chapter 9. Oh my god, chapter 9 is a long chapter. Sammy does this thing in chapter 9 where he waits by her bed, and he's like, good morning, and he's kind of like peeking over and waiting for her to wake up. And Asadi does the same thing here, because I thought it would be cute, and it's something that she would totally do. Later, reading through it again, I was like, alright, maybe she wouldn't do it right now, because she's in a hostel and anyone can walk in on her at any moment, and that would naturally make her uncomfortable. So that's why this part got removed. But on the dialogue section, so Asadi's like, good morning, and Sammy jumps back, and then she apologizes, and she doesn't just say I'm sorry. And sometimes I feel bad because I have to make you guys read all of this bumbling, but she doesn't just say I'm sorry. She says I'm sorry, tries to explain herself and bumbles around and stuff, because she's a person who overthinks people's reactions to things. So she would automatically, her knee-jerk reaction automatically is to just over-explain herself, and sometimes make the situation worse, but sometimes you just don't have to say anything. So yeah, she goes through this whole thing. And with Asadi and her bumbling, and just the way she speaks in general, sometimes it's a matter of like, alright, how can I make her bumble but like not have to spend more than 2 bubbles on it? You know what I mean? Because like real estate, page real estate is also important. One of the important things that I started when I started rewriting leftovers is enforcing a page limit, and I kind of hinted at that a little bit. Chapter 9 is really long, and it was I don't know, it was just I started like being faithful to the long pages in chapter 8, I think. But chapter 9, I kind of went overboard with it, and what happened was, because I didn't have a page limit on it, certain scenes became more inflated than they needed to be, because like, oh, I have all the panels in the world. But it's important to limit yourself and use your panels wisely, so you give impact to the scenes that need it, but don't spread the impact evenly amongst like the panels, if that makes sense. So when it comes to something like this little interaction here with Asadi and Sammy, like I don't want that to take up 3 pages. You know what I mean? I started limiting myself to 24 to 25 pages per chapter, and then I combine them into long pages. But I don't want this to take up like 3 pages. So I have to make it short to where it ends naturally, but like it also like I don't want to cut it off before it's time, but it also fits within the page limitation and allows for everything else in the chapter to take place. So I'm just gonna run through the chapter real quick. So yeah, Asadi wakes, well, she doesn't wake Sammy up, she waits by the bed for him to wake up, and he wakes up, and she's like, hey, her stomach starts growling, and she's like, hey, like, you hungry? Because I'm hungry. And there's they're at a hostel. Asadi and the group are staying at a hostel right now. And just in case you don't know what a hostel is, it's basically like a it's like a community hotel, I guess. I don't really know how. It's a pretty cheap option when it comes to like going somewhere and staying somewhere. Oh, that reminds me of something too. Brief tangent. When I was talking about not having just the character interactions be the only conflict, this is what I meant. So they're traveling, which means they're going to run into a lot of different conflicts that are not just character based, including things like where to stay for the night, what kind of foods they can eat, what the laws of the city are, customs, as far as like customs within the town or the city, stuff like that. So that was another thing that kind of expanded into this each city is a separate arc type of thing, because like each city has so much more to explore, and each city has a lot to offer as far as character development goes. So going back into things, yeah, so they're at a hostel. Basically, you stay there. It's like community living where you sometimes you're in a room with multiple people. Sometimes you have your own little like pod or something. And it's, I don't really know how else to explain it. Just look up a hostel. It's a cheap option if you're traveling somewhere and you need somewhere, temporary to stay, or even stay long term for, the duration of your trip. But yeah, I had to find a bunch of different like housing options and stuff. Like, is there a pokey Airbnb? Like, what's going on with that? So they are staying in a hostel, and there's a cafeteria downstairs. Now, at this point in time, I wasn't quite sure what the hostel was going to be, but kind of going into the whole world building thing, I decided the hostel, because Gidget is the one who gets them stay at that hostel, and Gidget has ties to the people who often stay there. And part of those ties is the fact that they're her co-workers, which goes into this whole thing with like Pokemon trainers in society and stuff. Generally, in Leftovers in Hoenn Society, Pokemon trainers are you can take the Elite Challenge when you're young, but it's also a class essentially. So not like a school class, but like a society class. And Pokemon trainers, because they have Pokemon like training school and stuff like that, where they take time off and they miss a lot of key education. Pokemon trainers generally don't end up going to college, and they end up becoming kind of field workers and like temp workers. So this hostel, is called Temp Station Inns, which is like a really dumb name, but I take glee in like the fact that people do name their businesses dumb shit sometimes, and that's okay. But it's called Temp Stations Inn. And it's basically just a temp workers hostel. So Gidget got herself and her group in there because she knows the owner, and she's going to work. Which is a part of this chapter later on, but she lets them know, like, hey, you guys stay here, chill out, because I have to go to work and make more money. Which is another thing I had to consider too. It's just like, where is the money coming from for them to travel, and with how are the kids supported? And Gidget supports them. So every now and then when they hop from town to town, she has to take up a temp job for like a couple days, something that would pay money. But I won't say anything else about that because that would go more into her past. So let's see. See, Asadi enlists Sammy to go down and get breakfast with her, and then they go down there and they run across Danny, and just my main goal with this was giving more people more development through very small ways. So, for instance, here she runs into Danny, and Danny's like, she says good morning to him, but he doesn't say good morning at all. And he's like, where's Brendan and Gex, which is his Grovyle. And Sammy, of course, is like, Sammy's thinking to himself, wait, is that Brendan's friend from back home? So that automatically lets us know that Sammy knows this kid, or Sammy has some experience with this kid, which then opens up another path as far as like character dynamic intrigue, because it's like, okay, if Sammy knows him, like what does he think about him, how did they interact, how did they meet, and then Asadi asks him, is that Brendan's shirt? Because Danny is wearing Brendan's Danny is wearing Brendan's clothes, which may not say, it may say many things, but me in particular, what I intended with that is that it kind of shows his, again, not trying to spoil too much, it kind of shows what his financial situation is, or it gives a little bit of intrigue, because like he doesn't have enough clothes of his own to wear. He doesn't have enough money to buy new clothes, or maybe he just doesn't care about getting new clothes. But either way, the fact that he's wearing Brendan's shirt is another path that opens as far as like character dynamics. Like, why is he wearing Brendan's shirt? Like, what's going on with that? So, and I have, obviously this is like a rhetorical question for the stream, but I have answers to these. I just don't want to say too much. Alright, and then they have their interaction. Hisadi, she's like, I think I saw Solana drag Brendan downstairs for breakfast. And also, I'm sorry, most of the stream, I'm trying to, just side note, I want to stream until maybe like 10:30, 11-ish. And I'm sorry if most of the stream is me going over stuff, but I hope you're enjoying nonetheless. Like, feel free to, in the chat, be like, hey, like, could you do more writing? Because I'm explaining this because I feel like, it's an interesting thing process-wise, and I'm hoping that you enjoy hearing about it. But if you'd rather me to just get into writing and the process behind writing, that's fine too. Just, like, let me know. So, yeah. So Sadie tells Danny that she thinks she saw Solana drag Brendan downstairs, and Brendan is like, well, of course she's involved, which implies that he doesn't really like Solana, which you've seen Solana doesn't like Danny either. They go downstairs. We have a scene with Celeste and Nathan, where Nathan has fixed up Celeste's hair for the day, implying that he's got, that's a part of his skill set. They go downstairs. Try not to go comb through too much, because I feel like I said, every piece of dialogue that I write is important and holds a lot more weight, and that's not, I realize how that sounds. It's not me trying to be like conceited or like, oh, I'm big braining, but like every single thing, like literally I could go through all of these and it would add like 10 minutes to this section of the stream. So I'm just trying to skim through some things, just to show the structure of this chapter versus the structure of the actual chapter 13. Sorry, I hope that mic didn't. Hey, alright. Thanks to you guys in the chat. I'm glad you're enjoying this. I'm actually enjoying talking about it too. Cause alright, this might be like weird Dasia thing. I talk through my processes at walls sometimes. Like I talk to thin air about my processes as if I was doing a stream. So that's kind of why I was like, I might as well just make this a stream, right? So I'm glad you guys are enjoying this and absorbing this. Sitting here brainstorming too. Oh, I miss you too, Meredith. Oh my god. Hi, Snake Wrangler. Also, hello, United. Alright, cool. So, let me get back into this then. So far we've had Asadi wake Sammy up. She runs into Celeste and Nathan and Danny. And then they get to the top of the stairs. They have their interactions. They get to the top of the stairs. And this was a scene that I really wanted to include, because I wanted to show kind of like the difference, or I guess the not camaraderie, I can't really think of the word that I'm going for, but the people standing at the top of the stairs. You have Asadi, Sammy, Danny, Nathan, Celeste. Those are all people who have some kind of issues integrating into society, and I wanted that bit of like a comparison shot, or the bit of them all standing there like trying to figure out how to go down, because the cafeteria is packed right now, and if you have any kind of social anxiety, you know that like entering a packed room is the worst. So I kind of wanted to show just by like just by the fact that they're all together, that they all experience that same kind of, I don't want to say issue, but they all experience that same kind, they all have that same kind of experience, basically. So, they're all standing at the top of the stairs, and then, Danny's like, okay, we could just, like, go down there. We don't have to sit here and try to figure out plans to go downstairs. He's like, nobody's gonna see us anyway. And then immediately, Mikhail sees them, and Mikhail screams, he's like, yo, that's the rest of my friends, good morning! And the entire cafeteria turns around and is like, yo, what's up? So, of course, they're put on the spot now. But again, with every interaction having a thing, or having a meaning behind it, the fact that Mikhail sees them and he openly says good morning to them, or he's very excited about seeing them. I included that because the Mikhail's excitement, and this comes up again later, but Mikhail's excitement, I haven't mentioned it outright, but he has ADHD, so his excitement is often inconvenient for people, and he can't help it, but it's inconvenient for people sometimes. So I wanted to show that by him, like, all of these people are very clearly trying to remain under the radar, but he, like, kind of brings them out. So he sets off a chain reaction with that. Everybody's like, you know, well, we might as well go down now. Let's see. And then we have a little section where, there's like a montage, and the kids reunite with each other. Solana, Brendan, and Mikhail are obviously already downstairs, so they, you know, reunite with each other, and they, talk and everything, very quickly, one panel, per scene, for this montage. And then we have one where, Danny gets downstairs, he immediately takes Brendan and separates him, and Mikhail's like, hey, you know, why don't you come hang out, like, why don't you come bring Danny over, and, like, I'll grab another chair. But Danny's very possessive over Brendan, that's all I'll say, but he's very possessive over Brendan, and Brendan's a good-natured kid, so he understands, and he ends up going with him sometimes to a sad degree, but Mikhail is very open. He's like, you know, I'll grab Danny a chair, even though Danny's been nothing but crabby. So Brendan's like, hey, you know, I'm gonna go sit with him, make him feel better, and I will see you later. And then, oh, bitter man. So I gotta make sure there's no actual spoilers in here. I think we're good. Okay, so I can just explain the rest of the chapter from just this here, because there's no spoilers in here. But yeah, so then we have a scene where Asadi and Sammy, again, just a one-panel scene, where Asadi and Sammy are standing in the middle of a crowd lost, and in the background, we see a man take someone else's seat, even though the guy who's sitting there beside him tells him, like, he's gonna be back, and the dude doesn't care. Which brings up an important point, too. Never be afraid to use the fact that you have a visual medium to kind of play around with things. And what I mean by that is you don't have to dedicate a scene to everything, or you don't have to dedicate, like, a separate scene to everything. Asani and Sammy are standing here and they're looking lost. We obviously know that they met up, or we obviously know that they're down there and they're looking for a place to sit. But in the background, you know, use all of your grounds, your foreground, your background, and your middle ground. Obviously, Asadi and them are in the middle ground. But in the background, we've got little text where we've got, you know, this guy taking the seat and setting up a scene that happens later on. And that's something that's very important that I kind of just realized. Like, I've been using it before, but I didn't realize how much it helps to sometimes just put little things in the background. Like, if somebody's thinking something, that can go towards, you know, it's still canon. That can go towards a character arc, or if somebody's, obviously, if it's something you need to put, like, a lot of focus on, then do that. But if it's, you know, just a little offhand comment that can color the character a little more, sometimes I'll just put it in a thought process, or, like, a little, you know, the character's in the corner, and you have just, like, the words above their head while something else is going on in the back, or in the foreground. So that is that. And then, okay, we have a scene that is actually going to start off the official. This scene is going to start off the official draft of chapter 13, because this scene was too integral, or integral, I think is the word for it. This scene was too integral to actually like cut out. So Asadi, she comes up and she notices Sammy. Hey, it's Kai Plays Pokemon from Twitter. Hello! Thanks for joining us. I hope you're enjoying the talk. But yeah, so Gidget, Asadi comes up, or she gets noticed by Gidget and like comes, come over, come sit with us. And Joe does his thing. Joe is the Machoke from the end of last chapter. He does his thing. And then Asadi starts meeting Gidget's friends. And Gidget's adult working friends, and this was a perfect time to distinguish between how Gidget talks to her kids and how Gidget talks to other adults, and that adds more layers to the character. So this little scene, like I really like this little scene because she's just doing her thing. Obviously she's a lot more open. She's a lot more candid with the adults than she is with the kids. Even though with the kids she is still very lively and lovely. So Joe ends up taking Sammy away because Sammy sees a section where it's like the Pokemon are getting food. It's like like if you have the cafeteria here, like this is the human section, and then this is like the Pokemon section where they're all in the corner eating food, and they have their dog bowls and shit, which is another thing I gotta work on. But they're eating their food, and Joe's like, hey, I'll show you where it's at. And he does this cute little jingle where he's like, I have to tell you that this is sponsored by the Westside Wingle Pokemon Center and stuff like that. And Pim is like, hey, go take him to get some food. You're wasting time. So he goes do that. And then the scene that happened earlier with the guy taking the dude's seat. Actually, the official beginning of chapter 13 starts here. But the scene that happened earlier in the background with the guy taking the dude's seat blows up. And
excuse me.
This was an interesting bit to try and write because I needed to. There's an important moral in here that Asadi learns that I needed to integrate in naturally. And I'm really proud of myself for how I did it, but originally it was going to be kind of just kind of thrown out there, and that didn't feel right. Let me go. Going to get food. Yeah. Yep, okay, so here we go. Alright, so this scene breaks out between the guy, the bitter man, as he's called in the script. This scene breaks out between the guy who took this seat that he knew wasn't open, and then the dude who they told him was coming back, comes back, and it's like, hey, I'll just read it. He's like, okay, you think you can just do whatever you want. And the guy is like, it's a chair, you dumbass, just grab another one instead of causing a scene. And then the returning man is like, well, maybe causing a scene will teach your ass a lesson. And it's I don't think it's in this version. No, okay, so no, it is in this version. They bring up the fact that these two have had problems in the past, but I specifically wrote this scene a certain way because the lesson that Asadi learns, because she's like, shouldn't we stop these guys from fighting? Shouldn't we stop them from like causing a scene? And Max, I think, is Max is the guy, the name of Gidget's female working friend, and Puppy Convict, whose name is Shep now. Thank you to one of my watches of DeviantArt. I can't remember exactly who it was, but thank you for helping me name him. But Max is like, sometimes you just have to let people hash things out, which is not necessarily faulty advice, but there is a time and a place for physical altercation, and a cafeteria is probably not it, but Max is like, somebody will step in if it gets too much, but sometimes you just have to let people speak their grievances and work things out on their own, which is very important because a big part of the Slateport arc, big spoiler coming in here, so mute me for a couple seconds if you don't want to hear it. Ooh, sorry about that. A big part of the Slateport arc is that Kiba and Kohen have their altercation. The one that was started at the end of chapter 9, they actually get to have that altercation. And this advice, sometimes you have to let people hash things out, is the reason why Asadi lets that happen this time and is able to convince Sammy to let that happen. Now, I said I wrote this this dialogue back and forth between Bitter Man and Returning Man a certain way, and it's namely, well, no, it's all 3 lines. Okay, you think you can do whatever you want, and then the guy is like, it's a chair, dumbass, just go grab another one. And the dude's like, well, maybe, instead of causing a scene, the dude's like, well, maybe causing a scene will teach you guys a lesson. I wrote that a specific way because, and it might not be apparent at first, but if you go back to chapter 9, this kind of back and forth reflects the way Kiba and Kohen's back and forth played out, where, Kiba is very much like, dude, listen, you can't just say shit and expect to not get consequences for it. And Kohen has a way of invalidating people's feelings without realizing it or without meaning to, because he is trying to avoid conflict. So the whole, like, instead of causing a scene thing, that's Kohen's line there. And then Kiba's like, okay, or Returning Man's like, well, maybe causing a scene will teach you guys a lesson. And that kind of ties into how Kiba's like, alright, well, because Kohen's like, it's not even your problem. And Kiba's like, alright, well, let's make it my problem then. And she starts airing out her grievances, and that's when the fight starts. But it's ultimately stopped before anything can break out in stress. So, that specific back and forth is something that I don't expect to go, super noticed, like the parallel between that. I don't expect it to go super noticed, of course, unless you're watching the stream, but something that I still felt that was important to put in there, just so it wasn't, just a random altercation and Asadi receiving advice because of the altercation. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to have it kind of tie in. Also, my Discord is not muted. Alright. Let me go back. Cool. So yeah, that happens. And then Asadi receives her advice. Now, in the part of chapter, or the official, I'll just call it the official, because it's going to be the official chapter 13, but in the official chapter 13, this section ends here. But one of the biggest changes between this version and the next version is that Sammy's in these scenes. So Sammy, he goes up, with Joe, and he ends up, running into Gex, who is Danny's profile. And Gex and Sammy knew each other from the lab, from Burgess' lab. So they have, a cute little back and forth where we find out their nicknames. Sammy's nickname, because with lab Pokemon, they tend to just give each other nicknames, and they're very fluid and they change, but they don't have like solid names until their trainer names them generally. So Sammy's nickname, being a Mudkip at the time, was Bookkip, because he's always in the books. And then Gex, who's a very chill guy, he just, stayed up in the lab tree. Sammy calls him Leaf Lurker. So that was their little interaction between, hello, Rosal. Thank you for showing up. I'm in the middle, I've done no actual writing at this point in time. I'm in the middle of an intense explanation on this chapter that's not even gonna make the cut. Yeah, getting back into it. So he has a back and forth, and I really like this back and forth because it not only fleshes out or explains a little bit about Gex's relationship with Danny, but because Sammy's like, Jesus, like, that's your trainer, I'm so sorry for you. And Gex is like, no, he's not that bad when you get to know him. Which I feel like adds a bit of intrigue as to like, oh, well, like, how is he when he's not being an asshole? Because I've only seen the asshole Danny. And then, important scene happens here, where Aiden, who is Mikhail's Grovile, and don't worry if you don't know all of these characters, there's a lot of them. I can bring up visuals if you want, but it's not important. just as long as you know what the Pokemon are. So Aiden is a Grovyle, and Haru is a Makita. And Haru in particular grew up in Granite Cave alongside, well, not alongside, but he grew up knowing Kohen. So they come up, and there's this cute little interaction between the two of them because they also have a relationship. And this is what I mean with, like, there's so many characters that I have to integrate into the story, and there's so many relationships between the characters, like interpersonal relationships, that I'm trying to have it all still advance, like, the main thing, but kind of just be flavor in the background, if that makes sense. So here we get to see how Aiden and Haru interact, with Aiden egging on Haru to, like, step out there and be bold, because Haru's very shy. So Aiden's egging on Haru to step out there, be bold, and ask his questions. But the question that Haru asks to Sammy is where Kohen's at, which then immediately brings us back to, like, a plot, where it's like, oh yeah, you know, Asadi is avoiding letting her Pokemon out because she doesn't want conflict again, and, like, what is the morality of that? I missed this earlier, but there's a scene where Pema just to the side says, like, hey, make sure you bring some food back for your roommate, for your teammates, kind of acknowledging that she hasn't seen them in a bit, even though everybody's Pokemon are out in this hostel. Kiba and Kohen are not out, so she acknowledges that she hasn't seen them in a bit, like, what's going on? And Haru, you know, comes up whenever they're able to be out. For instance, on the beach at the end of chapter 9, Haru and Kohen, you know, catch up. So Haru comes up and he's like, hey, you know, you're Kohen's teammate, like, where is he? Sammy has to lie. He's like, yeah, he's asleep right now. Which makes Haru sad, but it ends up ending with Sammy being like, alright, maybe I should bring some food back for my teammates. So the structure with this chapter is that a scene would happen, and Kiba and Kohen would be brought up just to kind of remind us that, like, there is that tension there, but not brought out until they wouldn't be brought out until their altercation on the beach. So yeah, so Sammy's like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and get them some food, get them little baggies, and then we switch. Which switching, like, transitions and switching is a weird thing for me in Leftovers, especially the recent chapters, because I had, like, two ends of a whole spectrum. I had chapter 11, where I think we switched perspectives, like, 4 times, and then I had chapter, mind you, this is 4 times within, like, 24, 25 pages, I think it was 24, but we switched perspective, like, 4 times, and then I had chapter 12, where we switched perspective once. I guess we switched perspective 3 times in the other chapter. It's just 4 different scenes. But yeah, we switched perspectives once in chapter 12. And that was a really comfortable amount of perspective switching. But it also, because it took place at night and not a lot was going on, I could also afford to not have the chapter switch as much. Whereas with chapter 11, it switched too much. So I'm kind of trying to find a happy balance here where I get maybe, like, 2 or 3 scene transitions, but not switching, not switching character perspectives if the character is not within the group, if that makes sense. So, like, we can switch from Asadi's perspective to Sammy's perspective in this chapter, because they are still in the same situation, but we can't switch from Asadi's perspective to suddenly Lucidia's perspective, which is Lucidia is Asadi's mom, but we can't switch to her perspective, because even though they're in the same city, their situations are way vastly different and apart from one another. So it would be, like, just too much circumstantial explanation to try to figure out, to try to rationalize, like, okay, what has Lucidia been up to? Whereas we know what Asadi and Sammy have been up to, because they were together and then they split, and that's why we back and forth between point of views. So Gidget comes up after we see Sammy and Gets Talk. We see a shot of Asadi watching Sammy and Gets Talk, and that's the scene transition. While she's at the trash can, and Gidget comes up and she's like, yo, I have a favor to ask of you. And she ends up asking Asadi to watch the kids for her while she goes out to work at her construction job. So her and her Pokemon go out to work at their construction job. So this whole interaction happens where they're like, hey, you don't have to go out to work. We have money. We can take care of ourselves. And eventually it just boils down to Gidget's like, yo, don't worry about me. I got it. I'm gone. Alright, and then we have the section where a couple hours pass and we get kind of an insight into what the kids are doing. And I think, yeah, this was a long chapter originally. All of this has been broken up into like 3 separate chapters now because again, like what happened, somebody gave me some crit on this too back on chapter 11. Somebody gave me some crit on this on DeviantArt, and I appreciate that, where they were like, the transitions between the scenes are good, but like be careful because the different scenes all happening, all the transition can lower the impact that certain scenes have. So I'm trying to keep that in mind when it comes to how many big scenes happen. So for instance, the scene with the kids all interacting and like chilling while Gidget's at work, I don't want that to have to be shortened because now I need to do a montage of them heading to the beach. So the chapter was originally going to end with all of the kids splitting up, but that I just needed to get Asadi and Sammy and her team alone because that's when the altercation begins. But it didn't feel natural, so we now have a chapter, this version of the chapter where they just arrived to the beach, and then they were supposed to split up. But again, that didn't feel natural, so I've had to rework that. Alright, so, and this was the original chapter 13 ending. So, I need to copy, because I'm about to actually start writing now, but I need to copy this bit here. Second, because this bit actually still happens with some change. The main change being that Sammy is not in the situation. Alright, here we go. Gucci. Alright, so done with that. Finally starting to write now. Let me see. Chapter 13 final. I'm gonna have to make some changes to this. Actually, you know what? I need to get the establishing shot portion in here too. Location. Yep. Alright, here we go. How you guys feeling? Are you enjoying the stream so far? And I talked for a whole hour. It's been 62 minutes of just going over other stuff. But I'm glad you're enjoying it regardless. And I hope it gave a lot of insight on things. So let's see. Yep, we got Gates' friends here. Alright, now there's a small montage. Everyone getting comfortable in the cafeteria. So this is no longer here. There's people clearing out as the first shift leaves. Okay, so the hostel. Also, yes, Meredith. The hostel was originally just for one type of worker, but since I changed it to the Temp Stations Inn, it's for all type of workers now. So there is no clearing out as the first shift leaves. Let me see. All right. The kids. Nope. I'm gonna say the group. The group is getting acclimated in the cafeteria, and there is a montage of everyone meeting up with their groups. Now that I don't have the scene with Danny being separated from Brendan, I have to see whether or not this section makes sense with Mikhail at the same table and notice Brendan taking his tray and Danny leaving. Danny waiting in the background angrily. Oh, there you are. You know what? I think that could still make sense because it can still seem like he's coming from, it can still seem like he's coming from like the line, the cafeteria line or something. So we'll keep that in there. And then I think it's nice to add, in the background, Danny is showing up to claim Brendan. Mikhail notices. Alright, so I think we can add that in the background while Solana is talking about, actually, let me cut that out. So yeah, now that I'm not like completely going off, whoops, things are going to be a bit more slow paced as I work through this, so bear with me. What color was this? Why did it lose its color? Red? Alright. The background of panel 1. Danny is showing up to claim Brendan. Mikhail notices. Mikhail, at the same time as them, notices Brendan taking his tray and leaving. Danny waiting in the background angrily. Got it. Alright, cool. Gucci. So, another thing that's important to note is that this will not be, this won't be like perfect writing, because I'm writing my scripts in a language that I can understand. It's not going to be like perfect flowery writing, so bear with me if there's some like crazy shit in here, like bitter man. Alright, in an offshoot of the last panel, we see a Pima waving Asadi over. Now, let me get, I also have my write-up here, and I have a notebook where I write a in-depth summary of the whole chapter, and then that's when I script it out. And sometimes, like certain portions will only explain like the feelings behind what characters are doing. Sometimes I'll actually write out the dialogue that's being said in here if it's something that's important that I figure out. Also, I did not make this bigger. Sorry about that, y'all. If it's something that's important that I think about, and it comes up while I'm writing the synopsis, then I'll write that piece of dialogue down. But this involves, I think, a few other changes. Oh no, okay, she's still called over by Pima. Also, I have my notebook by my mic, so please let me know if my page turning is way too loud. So she's called over by Pima, but as she walks by one table, we get a quick shot of the trouble brewing over Stolen Sea. Okay, so that's still the same. That bit is still the same. Okay, so the only thing that's different here is that Joe is not in the scene because Joe had to go get his son. And speaking of helpers, good morning, you two. It's only one of them now because Sammy is not in the scene. So, big change when it comes to this chapter, or this version of the chapter versus the last one. The last version of the chapter very much involved the point of views of Sammy and Asadi, and then what would happen later on is that Kiba and Kohen would be released by Asadi, and they would still be kind of angry about the other night because of some Pokeball shit that I'll explain way later. Oh, sorry. So yeah, she would release the two of them, and then they would still, only have eyes for each other, and then the fight would start from there. For me, I couldn't rationalize that situation or the way that situation happened, because it felt like Kiba and Kohen were very much an afterthought until suddenly they weren't. But then also something really big happened when I realized that Kiba can break out of her Pokeball, and this was something that I used as a plot device back in the day. This is why it's important to plan your stuff out before you get into it, but I'm working with it. A lot of the times I have to go back and reread just to make sure internal consistency stays the same. And there's been a few times where I've screwed myself over retroactively. But one of these times is the fact that kind of a crutch that I used back in the old chapters, I think it was chapters 4 and 5, was that Kiba would pop out of her Pokeball. And considering Sammy's grievances with his Pokeballing, I needed to address that in some way. Plus the fact that, the fact that Kiba would just sit in her Pokeball until Asadi was ready to release her it wasn't gelling well with me for some reason. So, well, not for some reason, I know why. It wasn't gelling well with me. So, going back and noticing that she released herself from her Pokeball several times, it's like, alright, well, what's stopping her from releasing herself again? And if not, why wouldn't she? You know what I mean? So I'm utilizing that in this new chapter where it's not Sammy. Sammy had a really bad nightmare last time and he was up all night walking around. So Sammy is out. He is knocked out. Sleep for lack of a better term. He's snoozing right now. And instead of Asadi waiting for Sammy to wake up and then going down with him and then talking to the kids and stuff, the chapter starts with Asadi already being downstairs. And, we can go into how she got down there and the nervousness behind that later. But, she's already downstairs. That's not nearly as important. Her getting downstairs was not nearly as important as what I could insert into the chapter from cutting that part. So that's another thing too, is just like weighing the importance of your scenes. Like, wanting to include something is nice, but doesn't need to be there. And obviously that comes with drafts. But yeah, so Asadi is already downstairs, but what happens is after she has this whole interaction with Gidget and her friends, and then the guys fighting over the chair, she's like, I'm a little drained. I'm gonna go upstairs and just check on Sammy and see if he's awake, see if he wants some food, etc., etc. The other thing too, I separated the human cafeteria and the Pokemon cafeteria. So now the Poke Room the Poke Room was upstairs, but the Pokemon don't eat in the cafeteria anymore. They eat in the Poke Room, which is upstairs and down the hall from where Asadi's room is, as opposed to beforehand where it was just like walking distance from where Asadi was sitting. So let me go ahead and edit this part real quick. So Gidget notices Asadi, and she's like, alright, speaking of helpers, good morning. So that's already alluding to her wanting to ask Asadi for a favor, but also implies that she might have been talking about her beforehand. Come on. Hops up. I'm gonna have Gidget grab her a chair. Alright, wonderful, everyone is here. Asadi. I think I can get rid of that there. Gestures to her. Alright, because there was a bit here where Joe was supposed to get the chair, but Joe is not here now. Alright, so wonderful. Everyone is here. Asadi. Alright. We met on Dewford just a couple nights ago. And then, alright, there's various greetings around the table. A random woman worker. Alright, leave it to you to adopt more babies. Alright, gotta change it to adopt another baby. Actually, you know what? I like more babies. Because it's already plural. She's already got babies. Gidget laughs that she's not adopted yet. And she doesn't appreciate being called out. Everyone laughs heartily, and Asadi herself, though still shy, also smiles from ear to ear at the thought of Gidget thinking of her as another one of her kids, or as a family. So this obviously is not going to be like, I'm not going to sit here and tell everyone in the comic that like why Asadi is smiling, but it's just a note for myself as to why Asadi is smiling, like later on down the line. So I know that like this is where she starts feeling kind of appreciated for being a part of that group structure, being a part of that family structure. Because which also kind of hints at the fact that she hasn't really had that in the past. Alright, so this was a lovely line of Sammy being like, oh, she's in higher spirits this morning, kind of acknowledging the ending of chapter 12, but Sammy's not here. I don't think this whole thing. Okay, this whole thing is like gone. Sammy turns. All right, this is okay. All right, see you. The background. All right. Let's. It's not done yet. Alright, cool. So I think that whole section is gone because Sammy is not in the scene anymore, so, and Joe isn't either. Alright, wonderful everyone. This here is Society. We met on Duford's a couple nights ago. And then there's various greetings. Alright. It's Max. We know it's Max. I didn't know what her name was until like halfway through the writing of the scene, but we know it's Max now. So I'm gonna change it to Max. Leave it to you to adopt more babies. She's not adopted yet. Da da da. Alright. So sweetest things. Da, da, da. How are the two of you enjoying trainer life so far? So, okay, since Asadi is not with Sammy, I think I could just shorten this to how are you enjoying trainer life so far? Although, let me see. See, this is where it gets hard to kind of write on screen because a lot of it is just me thinking about things. Let me see. Alright, Asadi arrives, prompting Gidget to introduce her. The content of this whole exchange is very similar to the original script, but with the absence of Sammy. Let me see. After pulling up her seat, introducing herself, Joe excuses himself to go check. Oh! Okay. So Joe was in the scene. Alright, Joe is actually in the scene, but he excuses himself to go check on his son. Alright. So Joe... Alright, actually... So do I want Joe to still grab the chair? I think I want Joe to still grab the chair because that's a part of his thing where he's just eager to please. Hold on a second. Alright. Here we go. Cool, so I could just add that part back in. God, all of my thumbnails for these chapters looks the same, which is wild. They all have this hostile image here. Alright, so this could still remain the same. Except for the good morning, you two. Alright, Joe, you got a seat already? Yes, ma'am, I'm on it. Wonderful, everyone here in society. We met the two. Alright. Everyone laughs heartily. Alright, now Joe's gonna be like, oh, sorry to cut things short. Let me say, pardon me. Should I say pardon me? Sorry to cut things short. To cut things short. To get going now before all type starts looking for me. Alright. And then I'm pretty sure he would probably say something like, it's nice to meet you. Oh, you know what? So nice to meet you. And sorry to cut things short. And he's like, I should get going before my little tyke starts looking for me. And I'm thinking, oh my god, that's not the same colored blue. Oh, tragic. What even is the same color blue? Is that it? Oh my god. Guys, my document structure. Okay. Alright, so I think after this kid, you should probably say something to him. So he's like, so nice to meet you. Sorry to cut things short, but I should get going now before my little tyke starts looking for me. Pointing towards the stairs. This is what I mean by, like, this is not, like, flowery poetry, because obviously, you guys know what I mean when I say sweat dropping. You know what I mean. But it's a very, weird way of putting it. So, sorry to cut things short, but I should get going now before my little type starts looking for me. Alright, and then Gidget. Is Pema, because Pema is here too. So I think Pema might say that. Wouldn't want that now, would we? Yeah, this is definitely where things start slowing down, because I'm trying to think what a good segue would be between, like, Joe leaving and, like, who would acknowledge him leaving? Pema's there, but would Pema... Let's see. So nice to meet you. I'm sorry to cut things short, but I should get going now before my little thing starts looking for me. Hello, small nerd. Thanks for stopping by. You come to the part of the stream where I'm pensively staring at my document, and things have slowed down quite a bit. Because thinking of dialogue is like, imagine, like, whenever I'm just staring and trying to think of dialogue, you can just open up another tab and play a PC fan sound, and that's me right now, just overheating. I'm glad you understand. So yes, and I read the same line like 3 times. I should get going on for another time. It's something about this line that's like not sticking for me, because it's like it's too proper. Sorry, buddy. Alright, tell little Tyson. Joe, to here from his auntie. See, I don't want to extend this situation. I don't want to extend this dialogue anymore, but I don't want to cut it off before it's, like, naturally done, you know what I mean? So, we want that now, would we? Tell little Tyson I said, good morning. Will do. I can hear him screaming for me now. Because Tyson's a little bit of a mess. He's just a baby. He's just baby. And I feel like Asadi would kind of maybe wave. Would she acknowledge that he's leaving? I mean, she doesn't know him right now. I feel like in a social situation. Yeah, alright, so we're gonna have 3-1 gives various buys to Joe. Again, this is not trying to win any awards with the way I'm writing. Everyone gives various buys to Joe, as he's headed off. Asadi also tentatively waves, while setting her tray down. It's not long before her attention is caught by Max, who leans in. Who's sitting, I think she's sitting on her right side. Sitting on her right side. She leans in. I'm curious. Alright. So I think, before, because I wanted her to, beforehand, this scene with them talking only served to lead into the whole seat scene with the seat thing being taken. But I want them to have a conversation, like in the text here, or in the my notebook. It says, Joe excuses himself to go check on his son. Asadi, Gidget, and Co get engrossed in a conversation about the hotel's function, and Max changes the subject to ask Asadi what it's like being a trainer and if she enjoys it. So I need to now integrate that portion into here. So would it be, I feel like Max would definitely initiate that. So let's just say, so Asadi was it? And let me click done real quick, because I know Evernote sometimes is weird about saving. Where was I? Okay, so Asadi was it? Asadi. About to put food in her mouth. I don't know what she's eating. We'll work it out in post. But she's about to put food in her mouth. Caught off guard. Yes. Ooh, I think I got it. Okay, so Sadi's caught off guard. She's like, oh yeah, yes ma'am. That's my name. And I think Max is the type of person, just from her advice later on and how she talks to Gidget, Max is the type of person to say this. Smile. There's a lot of smiles heartily. Because, I'm writing a story, like actually writing out a story as opposed to writing a script to make a comic, and it's called Anxieties. And a big part of the anxiety surrounding actually writing that out is going to be not using the same 15 phrases every chapter, like smiles heartily, finding, things to substitute for that, because it's unlike a comic where your art can talk for most of it. Like, I can just draw her smiling heartily. This is going to be mostly text. It'll have art with it alongside it, but it's going to be mostly text. So I gotta brush up on the way I write, or my writing style. We can't shorthand a whole lot of it. So let's see. Max smiles heartily. And then I want her to comment about Asadi about to dig in. Let's see, so Asadi was it? Dig in us. Oh, Meredith, interested in thesis? Just responding to your chat message. Go ahead and dig in less. I hope you have a good time with it. I don't know if I explained what it was about, but I don't want to. You have to let me know if you want, because it kind of spoils my Let's Play a little bit, I feel like, so I won't explain too much about what Anthesis covers. Oh my god, narrative. I'm glad. I gotta try to, like, I gotta reread your story so I can brush up and soak up some good inspiration. So, okay, Max smiles heartily. And don't let me stop you. So Max is teasing her about the fact that because they're temp workers and they eat this food a lot, so it's really not anything good or anything like exciting for them. It's just like, Asadi is about to dig in like this is a meal and it's just like some soup or some shit. So I can imagine Max teasing her about it. You're so excited for that hospital food, aren't you? Go ahead, dig it. Don't let me stop you. Oh. Let's see. Now, I could have Asadi ask what a hostel is. Because, I don't imagine, they got in pretty late to Slateport, so I don't imagine she really had time to soak in, like, the fact that this is a hostel, and again, she's very sheltered, so she's never actually been anywhere, outside of Little Root. So, Asadi, for, I don't know which one she's putting down, because she's got, like, I don't know what food she's eating, food. It's like, I want Asadi to show that she's not very knowledgeable about the world, but I don't want her to be stupid. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, how would she approach... I think, okay, so the main thing I'm trying to do here is lead into a conversation where I can give a little bit of exposition about what the hostel is and how the hostel works. But I'm trying to do that naturally without just, like, plot or expositioning the whole thing. Trying to have it be, like, a natural conversation, because this is a scene on its own, and then, the rest of the chapter is relatively short. Like, we only switch scenes two times. So, I can burpee tonight. So I can afford to spend a little extra time with this conversation. Let's see. Now, do I want Asadi to ask about hostel food, or do I want Gidget to step in and be like, stop teasing my kids? Alright, you know what? We'll have Max follow up on that, and we'll see where that goes. Certified. Let me see. That right there is certified Slateport slop, brought to you fresh from. I'm approaching this imagining that Max, being that she stayed here a lot, would be a bit cynical about it. Kind of like how, like, nobody likes school food. Like, nobody likes cafeteria food, you know what I mean? So everybody talks about that cardboard-ass pizza with that plastic cheese. So I'm kind of approaching it from that angle. So yes, that there is certified Slateport slop, brought to you fresh. You know what? No, because I don't want to stop it there, because that seems like it's hiding something. So, to you fresh from the 14 fresh from, where is it brought to y'all fresh from? I'm trying to figure this out. That right there is certified Slateport. Oh, you know what? Good for bite. Gone in an hour.
secure, I have to have value. I want to be worth something. I want to be worth enough.
Oh my god, why does the song suddenly start hitting different? Alright. Oh yes. Alright, that right there is certified flop. I'm gonna have her hold her bowl up. Hold bowl up. As if giving a oh god, how do you spell soliloquy? Stop. That is not how you spell it, but autocorrect, help me out. Here we go. Obviously like a Shakespeare reference here, but not specifically meaning to be a Shakespeare reference. She's just dramatic. So holding bowl up as if giving a soliloquy. Yes, that right there is certified. You know, it's gonna be this right there. This right here. No, what the hell? This right here is certified sleep-port slug. Good for a bite, gone in an hour. And then Asadi. Oh, you're gonna notice me. I'm gonna probably be making a lot of expressions too, because I like to do that while I both while I draw and while I write, so I can really get into the feeling. But Asadi kind of recoils. What are my actions? My actions are just black. Okay. Asadi recoils a bit, putting the food, or putting the food down all together, and looking at the questionable contents. Putting the food all together, looking at questionable contents. Gidget leans and putting a hand on Asadi's. Gidget is on her left side. She puts a hand on Asadi's left shoulder. Sad writer gang! Ride or die for the sad writer gang. Alright, she puts a hand on Asadi's left shoulder, which is very important. But again, not gonna go into spoilers. She's sitting to the left of her, reaching over to put a hand on Asadi's left shoulder. Alright, and then Gidget chastises, or she chides, I think that's the word, chides. We'll just say, Jamie! Welcome! I'm gonna be streaming for another hour and a half at least. I'm thinking, I think I might just go to 11 and end it there. I talked for a long time about stuff leading up to this, but at least we're getting some dialogue writing in. So Gidget says she talks to Max before Max. Now, wait a minute, did she talk to Max? Did she yell Max? Oh yeah, here we go. Max behave. Alright. Oh yeah, I figured because of the time difference. But I'm glad you can make it out though. I hope you find this stream very entertaining and maybe even inspirational, perhaps. So Gidget is like, oh Max, it's not that bad. Max, hush, it's not that bad. Nope, not Asadi, I meant Max. Yeah, I suppose it isn't. Okay, here's where I need input. Somebody give me another hostile name, because I want her to be like, yo, I suppose it isn't like insert hostile name here level of bad. But it has to have hostile in it. So for reference, the name of this hostel is Temp Stations Inn. So it can be that level of cheesy. I'm totally not against that at all, clearly. But yeah, give me another hostel name in the chat. Is it insert name here? Hostel levels of bad. Oh god, I struggled so hard explaining to you guys what a hostel is, and now I'm gonna have them explain it? Well, okay, so here's another somewhat important... Latrell! Letton, you're here. Thank you for stopping in, big dog. Thanks all of you guys, honestly, and I keep looking over there because my chat's over there, but thanks to everybody for showing me love on this stream. It's been really fun. So, another important thing to remember when you're writing your dialogue, because I was just like, I don't know how to explain a hostel. And now I'm about to have Asadi ask what a hostel is, and then, hostel. Oh my god. You're on the right track. Branch off from that a little, because I had kind of an idea based off of that, but, hostel. That's bad. That's bad. I love it. And it would kind of imply the level of food that they would have there. But yeah, so I'm like, I don't know how to explain a hostel, and now I'm about to have Asadi ask what a hostel is, and then have to have these characters explain what a hostel is to Asadi. But, and I think we do this a lot as writers, we use characters as like, well, I was already explaining this, we use characters as mouthpieces to explain exposition, but without taking into account their own experiences, or without taking into account their own, like, how they would normally react or explain things. And I'm trying to reel that in a bit, because I have sometimes characters who act as like therapy mouthpieces. For instance, Pema, where Pema delivers a lot of advice. And there's actually a scene later on in the arc where Sammy asks a Pokemon that's older than him for advice, and she's like, I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of here. And I think that's perfectly acceptable, because people don't always have the answers. We have the answers as writers, but it's important to remember that our characters are just living their lives. They don't always have the answers. So, that character, it's big brain time. 5 seconds later, I am only baby. Dasia attacks already to the personal level. I'm so sorry I had to do it to him. But yeah, so I'm gonna have fun having Max try to explain a hostel and just failing, because like, she has never thought of what a hostel is. She just goes to these places, you know what I mean? So, and plus, not to like bring things to that level, but like, again, what I was saying with trainers and Hoenn also being known for not really having like full educations, they're not always going to be the most knowledgeable about everything, or the most eloquent in speaking, or having social connections. So, hostel. Oh god. Yeah, these characters are just vibing. Just living their lives, for real. Just sitting here talking about cafeteria food, honestly. So, I think Asadi would probably be like, I don't want to sound dumb, but what's a hostel? You know what? Would she raise her hand? No, okay, so I was gonna have Asadi. Everything has like 15 layers of decision making behind it, but that's what you guys tuned in for. So here we go. I was gonna have Asadi like raise her hand, like, hey, you know, what's a hostel? But that's a very natural thing for me to do because I'm not too far removed from school, but Asadi is very far removed from school, so I don't think that would still be. And plus, with like her going to trainer school, she didn't have to do like the whole, you know, formal raising your hand thing. It was kind of just like, oh, like, hey, talk to me, or she just didn't talk at all. So sometimes you see these places that are like Sakura Hotel and Hostel, and you're like, which one? Yeah, right? That was with me trying to figure out how to where to stay in Japan. I was like, okay, I find hotels that were hostels, and that's gonna be, you know, an integral part of writing with Leftovers too, is like them having those experiences where it's like, okay, you know, we can't trust the ratings on this hostel, or this is a 5-star hostel, but then when you get there and it's horrible, or it ends up being like a capsule hotel or something, and it's like, oh shit, we're all separated and like packaged like sardines. So I don't think Asadi is going to raise her hand, or should she? Because it is a very I don't know, I'm gonna go with my gut and say she's not gonna raise her hand here. Actually, I don't want to sound stupid, but what? Say alright, I think, let me see, what's a hostel? And then I feel like it is a whole crew in here, Jamie. This is fun. I'm glad you guys showed up. It's my friends from all different walks of life. Like, that's one thing too, where I write a lot of different characters, and I like crossing them over and seeing like what characters from different parts of Asadi's life like connect, and is that American Boy? That's American Boy, ain't it? Hold up. That's dead-ass American Boy. Ooh, but it's a lo-fi American Boy, okay? I like to connect all of my characters and see the different interactions they could have. That's just an extension of me in real life. I like getting all of my different friends from different walks of life. So you got like my Twitter crew, you got my my Nuzlocke forum homies, you know, my Discord college pals, my Animal Crossing people, you know, just, you know, roommates, everybody's just kind of in here in this chat. I enjoy that. But I did just lose my train of thought. I don't want to sound stupid, but what's a hostel? Yeah, okay. So I think Max was probably Animal Crossing boys. Ooh, woo. So let's see. Suddenly Max bursts out in laughter. I actually don't know the difference between a hotel and a hostel. I've stayed in both. Hostels have dormitory rooms. Yeah, that's kind of like what my idea, like the differences between them. I was trying to explain it. It's kind of like a more of a community setting, because you have community bathrooms. Communal, I think is what they're called. You have communal bathrooms and stuff, and you know, you oftentimes do have cafeterias. You don't have kitchens in your room. It's just like a dorm where you have a bed and, you know, a dresser or a locker normally, and you kind of stay in there, and then you go out and you like interact with the rest of the people in the hostel. So let's see. Suddenly Max bursts out in laughter, which makes Sadi a bit uncomfortable at first, but then Max leans back in and clarifies. hadn't even known what a hostel was on me. And then, oh no, I think Gidget would chime in here and be and kind of jokingly back, be like, yeah, like, bad on you. Don't sour her experience before she ever gets to actually stay at more hostels. Because they're really, in Gidget's eyes, they're really not that bad. They're just kind of like a home away from home, essentially, for her. But again, I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to spoil shit. So let me just stop talking. I just hadn't considered that you didn't even know what a hostel is. So would I have Gidget kind of be like, so is it more important for Gidget to tease Max about this and then have Max explain it? I feel like Gidget would jump in and explain it, just because she is kind of like the mother hen to Asadi and everybody right now. So, but it's got to be a follow-up to what Max said. Sorry, it's a wonderful question. Just hadn't considered that you didn't even know what a hostel was. That's on me. I think just to continue this here, that's when we get Max kind of explaining in her own terms, like, what a hostel is. Max leans back in her chair. Alright. Sorry, it's a wonderful question. I just had to consider, you know, hostel was, that's on me. I suppose could it a less ritzy hotel? I suppose you could call it a less ritzy hotel. There's dorms and such. And this is what I mean by, like, taking the character's experience, like, into or just taking the character's voice into account. So, like, how would Max be when it comes to explaining something formal versus the much more fluid and natural act for her of teasing jokingly? Yeah, right? A serious writing question. Dasia, how do you deal with the ideas that you love but have to cut out of a story because it's either not right for the characters or the plot line is too much? For me, it sucks because I feel like it's a wasted idea. That's actually an excellent question. And again, I'm not a professional, so, like, take it with a grain of salt. But for me personally, like, for instance, I went through last chapter and talked about a lot of the ideas that I wanted to keep in, but just couldn't because of the way the chapter had changed. And one of those ideas was, I'm trying to think which one got cut completely. I think, okay, one of those ideas was all of the kids, well, not all of the kids, but Asadi, Sammy, Nathan, Danny, and Celeste all standing at the top of the stairs, kind of solidifying that they're the socially awkward portions of the crew, and then showing that, in contrast, Mikhail is very open and that sometimes inconveniences people. That was something that I really wanted to keep in there, just because I think I felt like it gave a lot more context to the characters. But because the chapter changed so much, I had to throw that scene away. Now, what I like to do, because if it's something, first I think it comes down to distinguishing what you like about the scene, and if the scene is just in there because it's something that you enjoy, or if the scene is in there because it delivers a necessary piece of information. Now with the stairway scene, it's obviously necessary for me to deliver that that the five characters that were at the top of the stairs aren't very good in crowd situations, and that Mikhail's enthusiasm often inconveniences people or leads to people being annoyed with him. But cutting out that one scene does not mean that I can't put those attributes in another area. So you'll see, if I do more of these writing streams, you'll see I have those scattered throughout this chapter. I have, and then with all the kids, at the top of the stairs being shyer, I have a whole series to show them in situations where they're shy. I think it's just, sometimes, you're gonna have to cut your scenes, but I think it helps for me to acknowledge the fact that I can integrate them again later on, not as the scene itself, but as the necessary components that scene was meant to convey. I can take those and I can implement them later on, and a lot of the times implement them even better. Like, for instance, I wanted the scene of Sammy talking to Haru because I wanted Sammy to kind of feel that guilt where Haru, he is clearly looking for Kohen, and both Sammy and Asai are kind of enabling this, keeping Kiba and Kohen Kiba and Kohen kind of out of situations. They're kind of enabling that by not really bringing it up. Or the isolation of those two, they're enabling it by not really bringing it up. So I wanted that kind of guilt to be put onto Sammy in that scene. But ultimately, and what ends up happening in the repurposed chapter, or the redone chapter, is that the person who talks to Haru, because I still needed that talk to happen, because I also needed people to know that Haru and Kohen are close. But the person who ends up talking to Haru, which helps just way more with explaining things, ends up being Kiba. Which is kind of like a little spoiler for the rest of this chapter, because I've only gotten into a little bit of writing it, but Kiba is the one who breaks out of her Pokeball, and she kind of explores the hostel a bit, explores the Pokeroom a bit, while Sammy's asleep, whereas Sammy was the one who got up and was, that ended up being not as effective as at what I needed to, or not as effective as bringing about the type of interactions that I needed for the story to move forward. Because we know Sammy is very complacent. Sammy is very, we know what Sammy's like, but we don't know a lot about what Kiba's thinking. So being able to take that scene, while I couldn't have it in the original format of Haru talking to Sammy, being able to repurpose it into Haru talking to Kiba just gives it a lot more texture and gave it a lot more life, because not only is, it's not just two different characters talking to one another, but the same information coming out. It's two different characters who interact wildly different, talking to one another, and then a new information is coming out. So I think kind of a pick-me-up when you have to delete scenes, or when you have to delete place things that you really want to include. A pick-me-up with that is to think about how you can or to break down what you liked about that scene and what's important in that scene. Because if you liked it, clearly there's something there. But to break that down and then figure out how you can better implement that later on. Because one, you liked that scene for a reason, and two, it didn't work for a reason. So I hope that helped. I felt like I was rambling a lot, but yeah, if anybody else has any questions too, definitely put them in the chat, because it was fun. It was fun answering that question. I feel like it touched on a lot of stuff that I hadn't mentioned beforehand, because I was trying to get into writing. But yeah, going into later on into this chapter, Kiba comes out and she ends up talking to Haru, and that presents just a whole other type of interaction, because not only is it Kiba talking to Haru, who she hasn't talked to before, but it's also Haru, who's another Makuhita, and Kiba is very easily triggered. So that interaction happens, and I get to play with that. I think the most important, or maybe not the most important, because everybody writes for a reason, for different reasons. But for me personally, the most important part of writing and just planning things in general is having fun and being able to play around with different situations. Like, there's times where I think about, like, oh, I can't wait for this certain interaction to happen because, you know, I don't get to have them interact that often. And the Kiba and Haru thing is one of those scenes for me because I feel like it brings out a lot. I feel like it brings out a lot of good character moments or a lot of good character texture. So yeah, I'm glad that helped, or you got an answer that was satisfactory. Also, I hope you have a better time at when it comes to like writing and everything and moving scenes around and stuff, because it really gets hard sometimes. Just the having to move so much around kind of becomes overwhelming after a bit. Especially if it's like this chapter 13. I mean, you guys already saw, I had the whole chapter written. I could have thumbnailed this. I wrote this chapter before this whole pandemic started. I wrote it like in January, I think. And I could have had this whole thing thumbnailed, but it just did not feel right. And I ended up having to scrap most of it. So definitely have to be open to that sort of thing, but also make sure you're still writing what you love and writing, you know, the scenes that you want to be in there. Just if context matters to you, also consider, you know, rearranging some things or getting rid of some things, but making it up to yourself later on, you know. So, all right, let's jump back into this. It is 10 o'clock. Have an hour left. Alright, so I don't want to sound stupid. Oh wait, we already got that part. Suppose you could call it a less ritzy hotel. It's dorms and such. Help me out. You're much better at this explanation stuff than I am. Alright, so then that also leads into kind of us knowing that they have a relationship. The fact that she knows that she's much better at explaining things. They have a prior relationship. And we can tell that from that line. So I suppose you can call it restaurant hotel, the dorm and such. Help me out, you're much better at this explanation stuff than I am. Then I think I want, I think that's when I want Gidget to lean in. Because she was supposed to defend the Saudi right here, but I think this is a much better section for that to happen. Alright. Cool. So, alright. Gidget leans in, reaching over to put a hand on Asai's left shoulder. So how should Gidget explain it? Because now I have to figure out, because I'm obviously still discovering these characters as I write. But now I have to figure out if Gidget is actually better at this explanation stuff than Max, or if that's Max's perception of Gidget. So how would she explain what a hostel is? And would she respond to Gidget's, or not Gidget, would she respond to Max's compliment of, you're much better at this explanation stuff than I am? I think she'd probably be like, I'm no better than you, Max, but I'll give it a go. Also, I'm not sure if Gidget normally uses suppose or she uses suppose, which is another another minor detail that I tend to bother myself with, just like the characters' voices in general. Like how do they speak, and what types of words do they use or truncate? I think Gidget. I almost let a spoiler slip. Oh god. But I think Gidget has a bit more of a little more of an accent. Or she can stand to truncate her words, but I mean she uses less, so I'm really not better at myself, but I'll give it a go. You know what's really awkward? Writing out laughter is really weird for me. It's like several different types of laughter that certain characters have in Leftovers. Like, for instance, the hearty laughter. I think Mr. Briny does this too, but the like that kind of thing. It's like, is that okay for the situation, or would it be more like a chuckle? Or would it be more like a I think it would be more like a but definitely more positive than a And then you got like Phoebe, who's like which is what that sounds like in my head when I read out the ki bit. Let's see. I'm really not better myself, but I'll give it a go, I suppose. You see. And then I think we can forgive Gidget giving a little bit of exposition here. The place. Now, she acknowledged that Asadi didn't really see too much, because they just kind of got in really late, and then everybody was exhausted, so they kind of just went to sleep. I'm really no better at myself, but I'll give it a go, I suppose. The spot on the hostel. Well, you know what? I could probably. Now, if I'm gonna say Max is pretty spot on about hostels in general, should I add that here and just eliminate this bit and just kind of tie it all in together? I think so, yeah. You're pretty spot on about hostels in general, because I can give a bit more in depth. I keep moving this bit around. Just a matter of like when it happens and what panel it happens in. So Gidget leans over, or leans in, reaching to put a hand on the Saudi's left shoulder. And then I feel like she'd be like, you see? You see? This particular place is called the Temp. Let's see. Then let's make that blue. Bold that a bit. Alright. This place is called the Temp Station's Inn. And as the name implies, it's home. End up spending the night. This This particular place is called the Temp Stages Inn. As the name implies, we're allowed temp workers in spending the night. There isn't much else to it. I'm sure there isn't much else to it that you haven't seen already. Isn't much else to it that you haven't discovered already. But I can always bring you a brochure later on. Thanks for stopping by, Small Nerd. Have a good night. But I can always bring you a brochure later on if you'd like. Would she bring her? Yeah, I feel like she'd say I could bring you a brochure, even though there's brochures hanging up on the walls. Called the Temp Stages, and the name implies it's where a lot of temp workers in spending the night. I'm sure there isn't much else to it that you haven't discovered already, but I can always bring you a brochure later on if you'd like to read. Let's see, make that bleh. And then I think Asadi would chime in and say, "Oh, I saw them in the halls." I think I saw something like that on the bulletins in the hall. After breakfast. I went after breakfast. Gadget. Did she call her last? Hold on. Cause I know Gidget calls her sweetheart. But did she call her last? Does Max call anybody last at any point? No. Alright, do I want to say it was a bit ragged? Or do I want to say, hardly refined? No, I feel like that's, I think slapdash. Hold on, slapdash is a thing, right? Let me see. Yeah, slapdash is a thing. I'll decide later on whether or not that's something that Max would say, but yeah, I know it was a bit slapdash, but I hope the explanation helped a bit. And then I feel like she's got to tie it back into her eating food. That's what I hope the explanation helped a bit. You know, let's go ahead and format this real quick. Bold. Let's see. Yeah, you know it was a bit slapdash, but Actually, you know what? I feel like Gidget would say this. And she would probably use haphazard. And then she would also use sweetheart, so I felt like that the ending of that sentence needed a little, like, pet name, you know what I mean? Let me see. I think Asadi would still kind of be staring at her food or like playing around with her food. Let's see. Looks down, plays with her food a bit. Like just kind of like messing around with it. And then that, I need a ... there. This is way too enthusiastic. I was just playing sport. Ooh, I just got a segue. I just thought of a segue. Alright, so Max is like, you know, I was playing about the slate port slop, right? Go ahead and dig in. Or should she say, you know, I was just playing about the sleep board, slop, right? Or would it be, you know, I was just playing about the sleep board slop. Go ahead and dig in all you'd like. All, you're gonna have to get used to the taste when you're on the road. Maybe not get used to the taste. You're gonna after all, this was the segue I was talking about. I still have to hammer it out a bit, but basically she implies that basically she implies that Asadi's going to be eating more hostile food when she travels as a trainer anyway. So she's not trying to sour her on the prospect now, even though she herself has had it already. So I think I gotta address that first. It might have overstayed its welcome with me, but don't let that sour it for you. Go ahead and dig in. Go ahead and dig in. And then I need her to say something about her being a trainer. You'll go ahead and dig in. Yeah, always welcome with me. Oh, you know, I was just playing about the slippery slop. I might have overstayed. It's welcome with me, but don't let it sour for you. Let it sour for you. Go ahead and dig in. After all, you're a trainer. So, after all, you're a trainer, right? You'll gotta end the conversation, or I gotta end that sentence with her being a trainer. That way it can adequately transition over. You'll be eating plenty more hostile meals on the road since you're a trainer, right? I heard that correct, didn't I? Yeah. Alright. And then Asadi, who still can't actually eat because she's being asked questions, now has to answer the bit about whether or not she's a trainer. Or being a trainer. Ooh, actually, okay. Now that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about this, I think this is a really good opportunity, because those of you who read chapter 9 know that at the end of it, the crux, or the thing that set everybody off, was that Kohen asked Asadi if she's really a trainer, in kind of a dickish, condescending way, but he has his reasons behind it. So he asked her if she really was a trainer, and Asadi, who's just naturally been doubting herself this entire time, has a bit of an adverse reaction to it. So I think this is a good chance to kind of bring up her insecurities about not knowing whether or not she is actually a real trainer, and have her kind of answer in a bit of an ambivalent way. Halfway to her mouth. Oh, sorta, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Kinda. I'm kind of a trainer, I guess. Looking to the side. Alright, and I don't know if I'm gonna have her, I guess, looking to the side be in a different panel, or if it's gonna be like, she's putting the food up to her mouth and looking to the side, and she's like, oh yeah, sorta, I guess. The mask can be like, oh man, what I wouldn't give to be young again. Let me see. There we go. Bold. Alright, Max is like, and what I wouldn't give for the good old days again. Traveling on the road, me and my team. It must be, I don't want her to say loads of fun, because that's not a Max thing. She wouldn't say it must be loads of fun. It must be, oh man, what I wouldn't give for the good old days again. Traveling on the road, me and my team. New to the flop. Responsibility free. It must be, now, would she say it must be nice, or you must enjoy it? Also, Asadi said, oh, thanks. Why was she saying, oh, thanks? Hold on. I need to see why she was saying, oh, thanks, before I continue this, because clearly everybody was waiting for her to say something. Or she was responding to Max. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. She says that Marsh Tomp of yours, you and Marsh Tomp are the sweetest little things. Got it. Alright, well that's not happening, so let's go back. Alright. Oh my god, where am I? Yeah, here we go. Must be, I need... I think exciting's good. It must be exciting. Must be be exciting. Real. Okay, so like a real page turner is definitely not the phrase that you would use in this situation, but I feel like Max would use a phrase that she had just heard, like when someone says, you know, oh, it's a real page turner, referring to like how exciting a book was. I feel like that's a phrase that Max would pick up and just use it, not really in the correct context, but because it's like it has become a synonym for exciting for her. So we're gonna stick with that. Alright, a real page turner. And then alright, here we go. Now we're back on track. Oh, well, puts a hand on chin and thinking position. I like it, but sometimes it's really hard. And then Max goes, well, it only goes down here. Oh, this is what she calls her glass. Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me put this in bold. Alright, and then Max behaves. Now, I need to figure out what Pema is doing in this situation. I feel like Pema is just in the background. Would Pema be in the... Okay, see... I need to figure out what Pema is doing in the situation, because Pema is too much of a character to not know where she's at. I think I know what I'm going to have her do. I think she's going to be in the background talking to other Pokemon, other working Pokemon. Let me see. Alright, everyone gets their prize to Joe as she's headed off, or as he's headed off. Pema returns to talking to some other Pokemon in the background. Because even though there is a Poke Room, Pokemon aren't forbidden from being in the human cafeteria. They can be down there. It's just all of them, like a large amount, is not really present, or a large amount isn't really. If they want to get food, they have to go to the Poke Room. And Pema is just down here chilling right now. She's already up in the Poke Room getting her food before Asadi got down there and woke up, all that. So, the reason why I needed to figure out where Pema was going to be is because, one, she's very opinionated. She's very much, she likes to chime in with things. So I need to have her busy in order to excuse the fact that she doesn't chime in when Asadi asks for help for something. Because Pema can obviously also speak trainer tongue, which, if you haven't read Leftovers, trainer tongue is like just human speech, and then Poke speak is just like Pokemon speaking. And humans can't understand Poke speech, but Pokemon can understand trainer tongue. And not all Pokemon speak trainer tongue, but it is possible for them to learn it. It's kind of, I rationalize it like me with learning Japanese, where I can understand it like almost, well, not almost perfectly, but I can understand it really well, but I cannot speak it. I can speak it a little bit, but not fluently. And that's kind of what Sammy is going through, where like certain words and organization of phrases he has trouble with. But that's not what I'm talking about. That's a tangent. And Jamie, I see your question. I'll get to you in just a second, but let me finish this Pema thing. So when it comes to Pema, she's very opinionated. She likes to help people out. So I need to figure out a way to write her out of the scene to where she's not adding another voice to the conversation and extending it even longer. Because already having, Max and Gidget and Asadi talk is already having to account for 3 characters talking in this situation. And that adds on panels and et cetera, et cetera. So my original thought was to put Pema, because Pema likes to ride on Joe's shoulders. So my original thought was to get Pema to go upstairs with Joe to talk to Tyson. But when Joe goes upstairs to get Tyson, he ends up he ends up doing what he did in the original version, where he led Sammy to the pokey side of the cafeteria. He ends up doing that for Kiba, and because Kiba and Pema's relationship is so loaded, I don't want to put them in the same scene together, because I have to. I'm forced to have them interact in some way. And it can't, because Pema is very aware that Kiba has not been out for a bit, so it can't just be quick, like, oh, good morning, alright, bye. Pema would be very intrigued as to why, like, how Kiba's doing, especially since Kiba comes out of her Pokeball and she's angry, and that's just another scene I don't want to have to worry about writing in. Okay, so, Jamie's question. Interesting. So you skip around in your script and come back when you need to fill things in. Do you only do that when you get stuck, or is that just the way you work? I generally work straight through, but if there's something that pops up, or if there's something where I'm like, okay, well now I've written this out and the earlier bit doesn't make sense, then I'll go back and fine tune that. Yeah. Usually just write, like, go straight, like the same way I'm doing here, where I'm just going down. I usually just do that. Let me see. Only goes downhill from here. All right, so noticing Asai's expression and tapping Max's shoulder. I think it's worth putting in that Asadi's expression kind of, her stomach, heart kind of drops, I guess. Her, a bit, comments dropping a bit at the joke. I don't even know if stomach dropping is the proper phrase for it, but again, I understand what it means. Alright, so Gidget noticing Asadi's expression, tapping Max. Okay, Max behave. Alright, cool. So suddenly, from the table focusing on earlier, loud yelling erupts from some other construction workers as one chews the other out. Alright, then we have that same thing with Returning Man and Bitter Man. Okay, Asadi tenses up at the yelling, visibly uncomfortable with conflict and how loud it is. This is an important, this was an important part, because Asadi has been shown to not deal with conflict very well, and I needed to continue that, like, consistency wise, to keep showing that she's not very good at dealing with conflict. So yeah, she tenses up at the yelling, visibly uncomfortable with the conflict and how loud it is. So Max leans in. Speaking of behaving, look who's taking whose seat again. Alright, and then this section here explains that this is something that's been done before. Can you see this actually? Hold on. You cannot see this. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. But yeah, so I'm reading this section here. This section here explains that they have done this before, and it's an ongoing issue, and they just keep prodding one another, which is, and then Puppy Convict, whose name is Shep. He's like, I think they might actually start wailing on each other this time, which also kind of foreshadows the fact that Kiba and Koen have constantly been, like, mincing words or yelling at one another, but they're gonna start wailing this time. And Asadi's like, shouldn't someone stop them? And then Max is like, nah, sometimes you just have to let people hash out their differences. Besides, I'm sure Big Mama Gidget will jump in if it gets too bad. And then Gidget's like, no ma'am, I have enough kids to look after. Alright. So that's just, you know, them kind of making light of the situation, which somewhat decompresses Asadi a bit, but she's still very uncomfortable. So this is the part where the chapter takes a huge, I mean, it was already taking a huge deviation because it didn't start with a bedroom scene, but like, bedroom scene sounds horrible. This is where we get into the first transition, point of view transition, and it is 10:30. We only have 30 minutes left, but my throat is hurting because I've been talking so much. I'm gonna grab some water real quick. I'll be right back. Alright. Okay, so we did actually manage to get through one scene on here tonight, even though it was mostly written, but that's good. So the table last as now, I think with Pema, I don't think anybody really has to look at Asadi for us to see that she's actively taking in information. Especially since Pema hasn't been a part of the scene. Still look slightly uncomfortable, but is actively taking in the information and advice. In the background, a small crowd, a small crowd has formed from surrounding tables. And this is another parallel that's going to happen later on with the whole Kiba and Koen thing. The small crowd forming. So table last is Asadi still looks slightly uncomfortable, but is actively taking in the information and advice. In the background, a small crowd has formed from the surrounding tables. Asadi sort of suddenly stands. Oh my god, it's taking a toll on my throat. I need to keep water with me next time. So Asadi sort of suddenly stands. We'll just say she suddenly stands. I know what it means. Even though it's a very soft, like, suddenly getting up. But she suddenly stands and getting the attention of Gidget. Max has now joined. Should Max join the crowd? Would Max... I feel like... Or would she join Shep on his side of the table to get more... Because Gidget, Max, and Shep are all connected. They're all work friends. I'm going to say she's now joined Shep. Alright, no, you know what? Max is standing to get a better view of the situation. Alright. And then, let's see. Getting in touch with Gidget. Asadi's sweat dropping again. Everyone's sweat dropping in this script. I just remembered that I need to check to see if Sammy's still, or if Sammy's awake yet. I should I spelled probably wrong. There we go. Go do that. Is it? Gidget, I feel like it would be like, understandable. Alright, you okay, sweetheart? Oh yeah, I'm all good. I just remembered I need to go, I need to check to see if Sammy's awake yet, so I should probably go do that. Very clearly trying to just exit the situation. And I should probably make a note of that. Clearly trying to exit the situation. Because even though I know what Asadi's character is like in my mind, it still helps to have the specific instances written out. That way I can keep track of what I was thinking in that time period, what I was going for with her leaving so suddenly. So, I just remembered, did she say alright? We're not gonna do alrighty then. How about understandable. We wouldn't want this. Hold on, did I actually use that tape? The we wouldn't want him. Wouldn't want that now, would we? And Pema says this, so it's like I could use that again just to show that. I mean, obviously, you know, we wouldn't want that type of like phrasing. Gidget and Pema are very closely connected, so they would pick that phrasing up from one another. So I feel like it's okay for them to repeat the same thing, but I just have to figure out if it's right for the situation. Understandable. So what I'm trying to get to is Gidget asks Asadi if she's coming back, because Gidget has a favor to ask Asadi, which is if she'll watch the kids later on. But I'm trying to think, does she say, are you coming back? Like, would she be that direct with asking that? Just remembering that I need to check to see if Sammy's awake yet. Let me see. Watch over spot for you. Aren't you? I feel like that's too self-centered for Gidget. I think she asked more of like, are you coming back? I can get rid of your tray. Do you plan on coming back? If not, I can get rid of your tray for you. Worry about the tray, since things are in a bit of a rise right now. Take care of that for you when we're done here. You plan on coming back? If not, don't worry about the tray, since things are a bit of a rise right now. I'll take care of that for you when we're done here. So if she's gonna say, oh yeah, I plan on coming back, but would you mind watching my seat? Alright. I think Asadi could just say, I'm good. I'm all good, so she's not repeating the oh yes here. And then give her a little bit of a thing here. A little section of ellipses, so we still know that she's a bit unsure. Good. I just remember that I need to check to see if Sammy's awake yet, so I should probably do that. I see you plan on coming back. If not, don't worry about the tray, since things are in a bit of a rise right now. I'll take care of that for you when we're done here. Oh yeah, I plan on coming back, but actually, I don't know if it's because the stream is so chill, but the keyboard sounds actually triggered my ASMR response. Wait, Rachel, I actually have a really good mic that I think people do use for ASMR, so I'm not surprised by that at all. I could turn on like the I forgot what it's called, where it goes from ear to ear. That I could turn on that too. It's really good. It's a really good mic. Okay, oh yeah, I plan on coming back, but actually, Actually, would you mind watching my seat? So that's the thing with Asadi's dialogue, is that it's very rarely just a straightforward sentence for her. There's always, every time she opens her mouth, it comes with a great big helping of doubt. So her dialogue ends up, and I'm sorry if this comes off as annoying, when you read it, but her dialogue ends up coming out with a lot of like, yeah, actually, I mean, like, a lot of very unsure statements. And I feel like I'm kind of the same way sometimes, but she hasn't gotten this whole talking thing down yet. She doesn't have the confidence enough to like string together strongly worded sentences yet. Biannual, that's what it's called. Yeah, my microphone has the ability to do that because it's pretty great. But I think that just comes with the brand. And it's a specific setting I can turn on. I plan on coming back, but actually, would you mind watching my seat? Gidget. Don't let those guys scare you. This has been a long time coming, but your seat is as good as safe for them. But your seat is as good as safe. I'm glad you're coming back. I actually have a favor to ask of you when you return. Alright, don't let this guy scare you. It's been a long time coming for them, but your seat is as good as safe. And I'm glad you're coming back. I actually have a favor to ask of you when I return. So the sentence that I'm kind of having a bit of trouble with here is the don't let those guys scare you. This has been a long time coming for them. Because I feel like that was already implied. And Gidget wouldn't just say it out, or the time between Asadi talking to Gidget and trying to leave and Gidget responding, I don't feel like that would have much of a place in that conversation, just because it kind of passes out a bit. Like, we already know, it's very much an advice statement, like, oh, don't worry about this, this is just something that these guys have to go through. And I'm trying to be a bit weary about including things like that, because again, not everybody is in therapy mode all the time, you know what I mean? So I feel like Gidget would just be like, okay, yeah, your seat's good as safe, just responding directly to what Asadi has just said, as opposed to reading her anxieties about whether or not her seat would be taken. Like Pema would do that, but Gidget, I feel like, wouldn't read the anxieties of Asadi worrying about her seat being taken because that guy's seat was taken over there. In this specific situation, since everything is like going kind of crazy right now. So just say, of course, your seat is as good as safe. I'm glad you're coming back. I actually have a favor to ask of you when you return. And then Asadi goes a bit surprised but intrigued. She goes, wow, it won't take too long. It won't take too long then. I won't take too long. I won't take too long then. Well, I won't take too long then. Now, would it say I won't take too long then? Or something else like, okay. Well, then I won't take too long. Yeah, we're gonna do that. I won't take too long. And then Gidget, hand waving. Take your time. Sure, we'll still be here. Chatting. Sorry. Smiles. We're not gonna say smiles heartily, Dasia. We're not doing that again. Gives a warm smile. Alright, so now we can transition this with that. Sunny, oh, you know what? With the shot of Sadi's face, or Sadi's warm smile, the scene transitions to upstairs. Because as one thing, when it comes to transitioning, and forgive me if this is actually just obvious, but when it comes to transitioning for me, when it comes to working on leftovers, I tend to I try not to transition, like do hard cuts to things that are unrelated. So in this particular situation, Asadi mentioned that she's going upstairs to check on Sammy, and then that acts as a transition to upstairs where Sammy is asleep and Kiba is coming out of her Pokeball, and Asadi shows up after. But that's we gotta get a little bit of a Kiba moment first, so I can kind of, based on Asadi's words, I can just take the camera and be like, okay, well, you're gonna be up here anyway, so I'm gonna get a head start, take the camera upstairs and see what's going on in the room, as opposed to just having the camera attached to Asadi and just following her upstairs, because we don't need to see her walk upstairs. Now, granted, I could see her walk upstairs, because one of the things I was going to do was have her walk upstairs and then greet people and kind of see, where everybody's at. But since the kids are already downstairs and they're having their little they're having their powwow at their table, I don't really need that scene. So we don't need to see Asadi walk upstairs. That is just implied that she's going to be walking upstairs. Instead, we'll see the destination, which is her bedroom with Sammy, who she's going to find. But instead of having like Sammy wake up or something, we've got Kiba coming out of her Pokeball, which I still have to, part of me still wants to rationalize, like, okay, well, why is Kiba coming out of her Pokeball now and not on like Sea Mauville, or not Sea Mauville, but the Sea Fort or anything, you know what I mean? So part of me is like, yeah, why is that? But then every now and then you just have to write things off. Like sometimes I just have to be like, all right, look, it's not gonna happen like that, and it's people will be forgiving of it. I can see all the holes, but not everybody is going to be able to see all the holes, so you gotta be forgiving with yourself when it comes to writing sometimes. I feel like you guys have seen, just for me working on this process alone, how much work and thought I put into the dialogue by itself. And, I feel like that's very cathartic for me, because I like being able to put work into something and then have a good product come out. Obviously, I feel like we all do. But it does get to a point where it gets sometimes a bit stressful. So I have to kind of pull back and be like, all right, we can have throwaway lines. Like, those are important, just every now and then have a throwaway line. Not every line has to be super important, even though I like to make sure it still fits in the character's voice. Not every line has to be delivering some bit of character texture or plot or whatever. And it's important for me to try to keep reminding myself of that, because otherwise I will stress myself out. So yeah. It is 10:51. If you guys have any like last minute thoughts or anything you wanted to put into the chat, I would go ahead and do those now. We still have 8 minutes, but I just figured I'd spend like the last bit just kind of talking to you guys since this is the end of one scene. I will say, next time I do one of these writing streams, it very likely won't be picking up from this same spot. It will probably be like next chapter or another part later on, and I will explain it as quick as I can without like taking up an hour like I did this time. But yeah, we probably won't be picking up from the same exact part. So yeah, don't know if you guys want to say anything. Go ahead and say something if you do. Alright, with the shot of Asadi's warm smile, the scene transitions upstairs. I could probably finish writing out this bit here. Let's see. Meanwhile, upstairs, Sammy is knocked out in bed, a cover neatly pulled over him by Asadi. Her belongings are scattered amongst the free space, including her Pokeballs. With several thrashes, Kiba comes springing out of hers. Having finally broken free, she's still furious, but seeing her surroundings calms down a little bit. She ponders over where they're at, how long it's been. She sees Sammy tucked into bed and instantly gets tilted. Yay! No problem, Bug. I'm glad you got to show up, and I'm glad you had fun. And thanks, Meredith. I mean, you lived with me, so you know how it is sometimes. My brain just be working for no reason. I'm glad you guys had a good time. And I would definitely like to do this again. I keep talking at the chat, but I should talk at you guys. I definitely would like to do this again. Like I said, it probably won't be from the specific spot, but it'll still be a writing stream. And yeah. Let me finish, I guess, reading this paragraph. She sees Sammy tucked into bed and gets instantly tilted. Wonders why he's allowed in the bed. Oh my god, yeah, that's right. Okay, ooh, thanks, Jamie. I'm glad you had fun, too. Yeah, you should watch your first, like, writing stream watching. It was my first writing stream, like, making. It's interesting. Honestly, it was really interesting because I think I kind of got into it naturally once we started talking about things, but I really was not sure how this was going to work out before I started, because it's like, I don't know, how much mileage can you get out of like text on a screen, you know what I mean? Like, at least with drawing, you can see a drawing start to form with like art streams. And cool, I will definitely let you know when more pop up. The next, or when I plan to do more. The next sentence, she wonders why Sammy's allowed in the bed and gets tilted. She assumes Kiba's just getting consistently angry in this scene. She assumes that Kohen must be out too, which gets her even angrier. She questions whether Asadi really hates her that much. Okay, I'm glad I read this because I completely forgot that all that happened. Just as she starts reaching a boiling point, she turns to find Asadi at the entrance of the room. So that's kind of like the bridging scene for that, between Asadi walking upstairs and Kiba coming out. But just from reading that alone, sorry, it was kind of like disjointed, but just from reading that alone, I can tell you that the intention there, because originally, like I said before, the last version of this chapter was just Sammy. It was the opinion of Kiba and Kohen, but through Sammy and Asadi, who don't know them. And I felt like I needed to really explore why Kiba and Kohen feel the way they do. Because that's going to be important when it comes to understanding their fight. So, should I mention this? I mean, it's not a super big spoiler, but this is a process writing stream. Ultimately, Kiba and Kohen's fight is kind of pointless. Like, their physical altercation is kind of pointless and petty, but that's how they handle their conflicts, is in pointless and petty manners, because they don't know how to communicate them. So I felt like in order to in order to have you guys fully appreciate why the fight was so petty to begin with, I needed a chapter to explore Kiba, and I'll explore Kohen later on, but I needed a chapter to explore Kiba and figure out why she's so mad to begin with, so we can understand that, like, oh, her issues are not something that's going to be solved from physical altercation, and yet that's what she resorts to, because that's how she's learned how to express her anger. So this scene where she comes out and she starts automatically just spitfire, just assuming things. She assumes that, you know, because Sammy's in the bed and he's out, Kohen must be out too. That means she's the only one who wasn't out, which means Asadi hates her, you know, because Asadi's already shown instances of, like, not being too fair with Kiba, admittedly. So Kiba's like, you know, oh, well, Asadi must really hate me that much. And she just goes through all this automatic assumption, which is part of her art. It's something she has to work on, is just not assuming the worst of people. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good place to stop, actually, right at the beginning of another scene. So yeah, thanks to you guys for coming out. I'm glad that you had a really good time, and I'm glad that you were here with me during this whole, like, just explaining everything, just, you know, going through, we've traveled from last summer up to this point. It's been kind of wild. My throat is very sore right now. I need to get some water and not talk to nothing for the rest of the night. Nobody, nothing at all. But yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed, and I'm trying to wait for the next 2 minutes to pan out, but I might end it just like a couple minutes early. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just end it a couple minutes early. Anyway, see you guys. Thanks for stopping by. This has been Dasia Draft, but we're gonna keep the ending the same. Dasia Doodles, signing out.